Welcome to Garden Wise Adventures. My name is Molly and today I'm really excited. This is another video about water-wise landscapes in Utah and what they look like. And we're here with Chris Klein. I'm so excited to show you her yard. But first tell us a little bit about yourself and what you've been doing.
Okay, well I'm a biologist. I work for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and I do habitat restoration for rivers, and I do cleanup of hazardous waste sites and then restoration of those sites. And I'm an ecologist and a naturalist, and I work with birds. That's kind of my main specialty is birds, and so I'm very interested in habitat. And I bought this house like in 2004, and it was just kind of a weedscape when I bought it. And yeah, I just wanted to have a really comfortable, easy to maintain, functional, beautiful landscape, and so with native plants, and so that's what I've been working on.
And it's all of that. I'm excited to show everybody what it looks like. So let's get started.
So these are wine grapes. Actually, I've got red wine grapes. It's a Cabernet Franc grape, and then I've got a Riesling grape, which is a white wine grape. They're both really good as table grapes. I picked grapes that would do well in this climate, and these are probably about 7 years old, And
wow, so you can grow grapes in the front yard and have them look beautiful and have them be productive.
And also the other thing that I really like is kind of the privacy and the kind of, there's a lot of rooms in the yard, so there's like a little sitting room back in here
which you can't even see from here.
You can't even see, and it's really shady, like in the afternoon.
I like the trellising that you did. It's wire against a really just kind of a decorative pole.
Yeah, this is this is like it's a double cordon method. So like when I plant, I did the internet is a wonderful thing.
Yes.
And so I was like, well, if you grow grapes, like how are you supposed to do it? And like for these wine grapes, you kind of train it out on this lower wire, and then just like let them climb up onto the upper wire. Then like I'll kind of go through, because like especially in the fall, the grapes really need like light and warmth to ripen, and then also mildew can be a problem, so I'll go through and kind of thin out some of the excess stems and stuff like that to make sure there's good airflow and stuff like that. And I've made one batch of wine with these, and it was really good. And this is catmint, which of course goes everywhere. Sedum, this thing is done really well.
Right on the south side there.
I'm gonna. And technically, like the grapes, you shouldn't have as much vegetation like around their roots, because
they don't seem to mind it though, really.
It's like they don't mind, but you get better quality grapes.
Oh,
okay. So it's one of those. How much horticulture.
Then you've got is that the silver-lined horehound back there?
Uh-huh.
Oh, that's gorgeous.
Yeah, and that thing took a little while to get going, and now it's going nuts. This is Datura, which will take over the world if you let it. But let's see. This is it's not blooming yet, but it's called hummingbird vine. It's
the Zauschneria.
Yeah, that's right. And I love it because it's a ground cover, basically, super drought tolerant. Like I really don't water it at all.
It's got those gorgeous red tubular flowers that the hummingbirds
and I'll have
love.
Multiple hummingbirds like defending territories here. And that's a currant. Yeah, this is just I can't remember. I think it's an alpine currant.
Yeah.
It really doesn't produce much in the way of berries or anything. But it's
got a really pretty little leaf and flowers.
Yeah, so that's kind of its value. This is a golden currant here that these guys will get really big. And so I really whacked this one down like quite a bit. I probably took it down by 60-70%.
Yeah, and you're still getting fruit.
No, it's pretty happy. So, and I've got an Oregon grape that a bird planted, I'm pretty sure, because I didn't. And this nice aspen grove. There used to be 3 big aspens in this corner, and these are all like son of those aspens. They were all suckers. When I moved into this house, this whole yard was just 100% suckers. Like that walkway wasn't there. It was just a big yard full of aspen suckers.
But I love what you've done with it, because it really looks like you've just walked into the mountains. That's what it looks like in the mountains up here.
Yeah. And especially like if we walk around to the porch, you can see how it's just got this like privacy and this kind of green screen. One of the things that's really cool, like as an ecologist especially, has been watching the succession of plants. Like for example, when I first did this, I planted a couple of these cone flowers, the echinacea.
Yeah.
And they did okay, and then the next year they didn't really come back. And then kind of over the next year or two, they really started just coming in all these places that, you know, were really surprising. So it's kind of, so everything is just kind of finding its own place and fighting it out with the other plants and, you know, working it out. And so I'm really not doing much in the way of designing anymore. Yeah, and then this is it's called a clove currant or a black currant. And the thing that I really love about this is that when it's flowering, all these flowers just totally smell like cloves.
Oh, I love it.
And then the berries turn into these really, you know, they'll be up to, you know, more than a ½ inch in diameter. Really
Oh, so they're
super
big,
sweet,
good.
big currants that are really great for, you know, they're culinary currants. I've made currant sauce and, you know, dried currant butter and all sorts of stuff out of them. These roses actually all came with the house. I think they were probably planted, you know, sometime in the 60s. I actually, the first time, you know, really the first time I pruned them way down, and I think they're way happier. You know, daylilies that are, you know, beautiful when they're doing their thing.
Yep.
Creeping thyme.
Yeah, look at that.
Yeah.
Love that bloom.
And then I love when
the clematis is gorgeous, especially against like the.
Yeah.
So you got the clematis, the creeping thyme, and the yellow rose all together.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so pretty.
So, yeah, I just, you know, it's kind of, it's a beautiful place that, you know, I'm not necessarily a garden designer, but I think it's worked out.
But you've made your own forest. You've made your own woodland garden.
And then this is, I love this because, you know, I can see the street and I can see out there, but it's private, you know, it's and shady and cool. So this is, it's columnar serviceberry. So it's a cultivar of the native, you know, so it's got the serviceberry leaf with the little teeth on the end. And it's, the other name for it is rainbow bush because it sets berries like in 3 sets. So the bottom third will be like ripe berries that'll be like dark purple, and then the middle third will be half ripe that's kind of a magenta color, and then the top will be still green.
Oh, really?
So that's why I think that's why they call it rainbow bush. And then so you just kind of harvest as you go up. So
yeah, and this is the really narrow variety. So this, how old is this?
This thing is probably, you know, somewhere in the 6 or 7 year range. Well, probably almost 10 now. Yeah.
So it will keep growing, but this is pretty much full size. This is as wide as it's going to get, right?
This is as wide as it's going to get. I'm not sure how much taller it wants to get.
Yeah.
A lot of this, because this is like a small place, and you know, all these, you know, I've got so much planted here, it can get kind of overwhelming. So I do some pretty heavy pruning on all this stuff every year. And I didn't prune this one this year, so it's really going to need it, you know.
But you're going to have a ton of fruit this year.
Yeah.
And it's so good.
A lot of it like way up there, so I'll have to get
the birds love this.
And the birds love this, And these berries, the other thing is that, you know, it's one thing to plant something that's got berries that maybe the birds like, but these are really delicious for people.
Yes, they are.
So, they're very tender skinned, so they're almost like blueberries. They don't really have seeds in them much that you can tell. And these berries, they'll double in size basically by the time they ripen.
Now, what I try and tell people, because I've had people say, oh, the service berries are nasty, and I'm like, you're not harvesting them when they're ripe. You've got to wait until that color hits the stem.
Oh, really? Is that okay?
Yeah, so when they get all the way, when it's dark purple all the way to the stem, then it's fully ripe, and then it's like, it's like heaven.
Well, and these kind of how I tell is you can just do that and they'll kind of fall.
Yeah, and they'll fall. Yeah, that's another way to do it. Yeah.
And the other thing that I've even done is like, you know, when I haven't gotten to them and they kind of dry on the plant, I've picked them like that and kind of used them like raisins, you know, like.
Do they have like, because mine don't have any flavor when they've dried.
They still have flavor. They still have
good.
A little bit of sweet and a little bit of tang. They're like a dried blueberry. So.
I love it.
Yeah. So this is kind of one of my favorite plants here.
Yeah, it's an amazing plant. So, it can grow many different areas, and there's all the different cultivars and different sizes, and I love this. This is the first time I've seen the actual narrow one with any age to it.
Okay. Well, and you know, again, kind of as an ecologist, it's really interesting to watch because, you know, trees are, you know, built for the long haul. All this stuff is, you know, so it's like.
So they deal with this.
Yeah, they're kind of built to deal with a bad year. You know, I think like in a garden, if you abuse them and never water them and stuff like that, they're obviously going to die. But you know, and the other thing with aspens, just kind of as a cultivation tip. Like you'll always hear, oh, aspens don't do well in the valley.
Yeah, they do struggle.
But I think the big reason that they struggle is because people plant them in lawns.
Yeah.
And aspens have a really shallow root system that's just kind of like a big mat type of thing. And so if you've got grass on top of that, all those roots are having to compete with the grass for nutrients and oxygen and everything else. And I think they don't win the war, you know, the grass wins. And so like these guys are, you know, pretty healthy. And like in a really hot summer, the leaves will get kind of, you know, desiccated looking and stuff like that. And I do have to give them some supplemental water.
Yeah, that's the one thing I found with aspen trees and that I've learned about them is they are a high altitude, north facing hillside plant that shades the soil. And actually I just went with an aspen researcher a while ago and he said that firs, actually that's their preferred place to sprout. That was the research that he was doing when I went, was we planted fir seedlings everywhere and put fir seeds down just to see where they would germinate the best. And they germinated under the aspen trees because it seemed like the root system of the aspen trees held the moisture a lot better and locked it into the soil.
Yeah. Well, and so another thing is like, again, as an ecologist and as, you know, somebody who's really concerned about sustainability and climate change and stuff like that, I look at something like this and say, you know, what would it be like if every house on this street had something like this? You know, just think of how cool and shady it would be, like how much less hot the street would be, how much less hot all the houses would be, how much more habitat there would be for birds.
Yep.
You know, so like, and as it gets drier and drier, you know, all the water's where the people are, right? And so that's all the vegetation is where the people are, and we're going to have more wildlife coming in because it's hard living up there.
Yes, it is. Like all the deer that is down here. I think I had elk in my Pleasant Grove backyard this winter.
Yeah, well, and that's because it was just such a hard winter.
It was a hard winter.
But, you know, I think it's like if you know, people were to, you know, landscape their, you know, especially I think their front yards, because it's just, you know, it's beautiful, it's private, it's shady, you know, and just think of what the street would look like if every house was like this.
Well, I absolutely love what you've done with your property. It's absolutely gorgeous.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
It's water-wise, and like you said, it's better for the ecology. It's better for the climate. It's better for our yards.
It's better for people.
It's better for people.
Better for birds and people.
Yeah, I would much rather sit out on a property like this in your little sitting area, or even on your front porch looking through your aspen grove, than sit on a front porch where you're staring across your vast lawn.
Yellow grass.
Yeah, it's just, well, I love it. Well, thank you for sharing.
You bet. It was great to meet you, and I'm happy to, you know, I'm happy that you're interested. And
love
I
it.
Showing it to you. So.
Yeah, I think everybody else is going to love it too. So I hope you've enjoyed this. If you have enjoyed it, please like and subscribe and share it with your friends.
Okay, I will go do that.